Municipal Records Repository. Evening. We stayed another hour after that. Neither of us said much. The watches were still on the table, mine, hers, and at some point, Hannah picked hers up and turned it over in her hands the way I've turned mine over dozens of times, feeling for something that isn't on the surface. I told her I'd spent a long time assuming the watch was functional. Archive material, like the crescent marks, like the blinking device. That I'd been wrong about what kind of functional. She said, I assumed the same thing. When I re-entered in 2019, I brought mine back to the reading room where I met the correspondent. Nothing reacted. The watch didn't respond to the records. The records didn't respond to the watch. She paused. That's when I started thinking it wasn't an instrument. It was something else. This morning, Origin Site. I brought both journals, the Project Chronos journal and the MO journal from the train station. Hannah had the watches. We came back to the index room because if the watches are connected to the registration system, there may be a record of them here that we missed. The index room looks the same. The wooden rack holders, the node catalog cards, the brass document frame where the founding document used to be empty now since we read it. The founding document itself is still in the lantern tower. I didn't go up this time. Hannah started at the pre-1900 section of the catalog drawers. I sat at the reading table and opened the Project Chronos journal. I've read this journal before, multiple times, but I've been reading it as documentation of O'Connor's experiments, the temporal intersection work, the convergence attempts, the device. I haven't been reading it for references to the watches specifically because I didn't know they were significant until last night. I'm going to work through it again, carefully. 2 hours in, found it. The entry is dated October 1924, more than a year after the fire at 47 Marginal Road, after O'Connor had relocated his work. The handwriting is smaller than his earlier entries, more compressed, like he was rationing page space. I'm going to read it into the recorder. Return to the question of the watches. 3 in total confirmed by the record. Mine arrived before I understood what the network was, before I could have placed it in any context. The second was distributed in the mid-period. The third I know exists by inference only. I have not seen it. The construction is identical across all confirmed specimens. The engraving follows the same format. Crescent mark and ordinal number. They are not instruments in the sense I initially assumed. They do not interact with the nodes. They do not respond to archive material except in proximity to the device, and the device responds to everything. The watches are receipts. Confirmation that a listener has been registered by the system outside the standard protocol, not through the 4-step sequence, not through registration at a node, through something else, through the condition itself, when the condition has been active long enough and with sufficient intensity that the system recognizes it and acknowledges it. The receipt arrives after the fact. You are already registered. The watch confirms what is already true. That's the end of the first page of the entry. I looked up at Hannah. She was watching me from across the room. I hadn't realized she'd stopped working. I turned to the second page. Water damage. The bottom half of the page is warped. The ink has run in several places, whole sentences reduced to pale streaks across the paper. I can make out the top third. The sequence implies not the correspondence origin, but distributed across, then a gap, then one phrase, isolated, the ink slightly darker than the rest, as if O'Connor pressed harder. The first receipt was not given. It was found, already present when the entry breaks off. The rest of the page is unreadable. I read the line again. The ink is darker there. The pen pressed harder. You can feel the impression through the page, like he knew the sentence mattered and bore down without meaning to. I held the journal up to the window light. Nothing more resolved. The damage is complete below that line. Hannah came to look. She read the phrase twice. She said the first receipt was already there, before O'Connor, before anyone he knew. I said, which means watch number 1 is older than the system that's supposed to have issued it. She didn't answer. She was looking at the line again. I put the journals down and took out the blinking device. Baseline interval in this room has been running around 3 seconds since we arrived, elevated from the 4-second baseline it held for most of Season 1, consistent with the increased sensitivity we've seen since the pre-registry site. I haven't been concerned about it. 3 seconds feels like ambient response to the density of material in the index room. I set it on the table next to the 2 watches. The interval dropped immediately. 3 seconds, then 1.5, then 1. Then the interval collapsed entirely. The pulses so close together they stopped reading as separate beats and became a sustained vibration in my hand, the fastest I have ever seen it move, faster than it moved at point 0 during the convergence, faster than it moved at Rook. I looked around the room. Nothing had changed. Hannah was still at the reading table, the catalog cards in their holders, the empty brass frame. Nothing new. Nothing different. Then Hannah said, "Look at the floor." I looked at the floor. The pulse. Through the stone, that same low resonance we felt at the end of Season 2, standing in the lantern tower after reading the founding document. The new signal, the one the archive's closing message said was a different node already running. It's here, or we're near it, or it found us, stronger than before. Hannah said quietly, "It's getting louder." The device cycled again, under 1 second. The interval so short now the pulses were almost continuous, a sustained vibration in my hand rather than a beat. I looked at the watches on the table, mine, hers. Both of them were running. I was looking directly at them when the device hit its peak. The second hands moving, not together, each keeping its own time, slightly out of sync. 2 receipts, 2 separate registrations. I've never specifically confirmed they were running before now. I'm confirming it now. If the first receipt was already present before the system that issued it, I put my hand flat on the floor.